Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into something really significant, an event that's had a huge impact recently. We're talking about the tragic Air India flight AI-171 crash in Ahmedabad. Our plan here is to, sift through the details, connect some dots, and help you understand not just the what, but the why, the impact, and the search for answers that's still going on. And our sources suggest this was, well, a pretty unique incident.
Absolutely. What immediately jumps out is just the sheer scale of this disaster. You have the immediate devastating impact right there in Ahmedabad, but then these far-reaching consequences globally. It really grabbed everyone's attention instantly. So what we want to do in this deep dive is cut through some of that initial noise, focus on the verified facts, and give you a clear picture of what happened and why it matters.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Picture this. It's a routine flight. Everything seems normal, just moments after takeoff. And then, suddenly, it all goes wrong. We're going back to June 12th, 2025. It's about 1:38 p.m. Indian Standard Time. That's when Air India flight AI-171, a Boeing 7878 Dreamliner, was leaving Ahmedabad's Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel Airport. Destination, London Gatwick.
Yeah, and the sources tell us that in those critical seconds, right after getting airborne, the plane only reached an altitude somewhere between, say, 200 and maybe 625 feet. Then both engines just shut down simultaneously. The pilot issued a mayday call, a distress signal, but contact was lost almost right after that. What followed was a rapid, uncontrollable descent. The impact resulted in an intense fire, debris scattered everywhere, hitting buildings nearby, a huge plume of black smoke visible for miles, and the crash site itself, incredibly tragic. It hit the Agar residential area, impacting the BJ Medical College Hospital and the civil hospital directly.
Right, and this is where it gets really baffling, as our sources emphasize. This wasn't just any plane crash. It's been described as a 1 in a billion event.
Exactly. And that phrase isn't just hyperbole. In modern aviation, with all the safety systems, the redundancies, a simultaneous uncommanded shutdown of both engines so low, so soon after takeoff, it's statistically almost impossible. It immediately tells investigators that something highly unusual happened, something potentially far outside the realm of typical mechanical failures they prepare for.
And beyond the mechanics, the technical side. The real weight, of course, is the human cost. On board that flight, there were 242 people. That breaks down to 230 passengers and 12 crew members. And looking at the passengers specifically, 169 were Indian nationals, 53 British, 7 Portuguese, and 1 Canadian citizen.
And the tragic reality is that out of those 242 people, 241 lost their lives in the crash. But, incredibly, amidst that devastation, there was a sole survivor, Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, a 40-year-old British Indian citizen. He was apparently seated in 11A. He sustained non-fatal injuries and was taken to the civil hospital. His survival, given the circumstances, well, it's truly extraordinary, a real anomaly. And we also have to remember the impact on the ground. That was severe, too. Sources report at least 19 additional fatalities in the hostel and the surrounding area, plus many more people injured. So when you add it all up, you're looking at approximately 260 lives lost in total.
It's difficult to even comprehend the scene, and then the immense agonizing task of identifying the victims. Our sources mentioned the DNA identification process that started immediately at the government lab. And, there's this truly heart-wrenching detail. 6 families were initially given the wrong remains. They had to go through re-identification, another burial, just unimaginable.
Yeah, that detail about the re-identification, it really highlights the incredible pressure, doesn't it? The human tragedy combined with the logistical nightmare. Trying to be fast, but also needing absolute certainty, it's a huge challenge for any disaster response team.
Absolutely. And speaking of response, when something of this magnitude happens, you need a massive coordinated effort, fast. And that's what we saw. At the crash site, you had fire crews, the NDRF, that's India's National Disaster Response Force, the CISF, which is the Central Industrial Security Force, reserve forces, the Indian Air Force, police teams. Everyone was mobilized immediately, working on rescue, recovery, securing the site.
And the response went right to the highest levels. Prime Minister Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah, the Deputy Civil Aviation Minister, they all traveled to the site. They were there to oversee the relief operations personally. The Gujarat government, state agencies, central agencies, they quickly formed a high-level committee to investigate. And you also saw corporate responsibility step up. The Tata Group, which owns Air India, they announced aid 1 crore, which is about $120,000 US for the family of each person deceased, plus covering treatment costs for the injured. Air India and Boeing also issued statements expressing sympathy, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
And there were immediate ripples in the financial world, too. Boeing's shares, they dropped significantly, something like 4 to 9% right after the news hit.
Right, those falling share prices, that's a very concrete consequence. Is that drop typical after any crash involving a manufacturer's plane? Or does the 1 in a billion description maybe amplify that reaction? Does it signal deeper worries about the 787 specifically?
Well, it's pretty standard for a manufacturer's stock to take a hit after a major incident like this. But yes, the sheer improbability of this particular event, it definitely raises sharper questions for investors, for the whole industry, really. It forces a closer look not just at this one flight, but potentially at the underlying systems, the aircraft design, the engine performance, all of it.
Okay, so that covers the immediate aftermath, the response. But now the world really wants to know why. What could possibly cause such an incredibly rare, catastrophic event?
Well, the preliminary investigations are laser-focused on that sudden dual-engine shutdown. They're exploring several potential causes. Could it be fuel adulteration? Was it sabotage? Or some kind of catastrophic, unforeseen technical failure? Crucially, they've recovered both black boxes. That's the cockpit voice recorder, the CVR, and the flight data recorder, the FDR. These are absolutely vital. They hold the key, really. The CVR captures sounds from the cockpit, conversations. The FDR records thousands of parameters about the aircraft's performance, minute by minute, second by second. And the investigation itself is a major international effort. You've got India's DGCA, their main aviation authority, working alongside the AAIB, their Accident Investigation Bureau. But also the US NTSB is involved, Boeing as the manufacturer sent experts, and GE Aerospace, who made the engines. They're deeply involved in analyzing the data.
GE Aerospace, right?
Boeing actually flew American experts over to India to assist on the ground, and GE started analyzing engine data almost immediately. Also, as a precaution, all 33 Dreamliners operated by Air India were grounded for safety checks right after the incident, the timeline they've given. We're expecting a full report with findings in about 3 months.
That's quite a lineup of agencies from India, the US. Does this level of international collaboration happen for every major crash? Or is there something about this event, this 1 in a billion factor, that really compels such a broad multi-agency response?
International cooperation is pretty standard in major aviation accidents, especially when involving aircraft manufactured in one country operated in another, maybe with engines from a third. But yes, an event this unusual, this extreme, it definitely amplifies that need. You want every expert eye, every piece of data, every possible perspective brought to bear. It's about ensuring total transparency, leaving absolutely no stone unturned. Because frankly, the implications of something like this could be global for aviation safety.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up our deep dive into the Air India Flight AI-171 disaster, let's just quickly recap the main points. We've talked about the shocking, almost statistically impossible nature of the crash itself, that dual-engine failure right after takeoff. We've covered the devastating human toll, both for those on the plane and the people tragically caught on the ground. We looked at the immediate, large-scale response from government agencies, emergency services, and corporations like Tata, and critically, the ongoing, meticulous investigation involving experts from around the world, relying heavily on the data from those recovered black boxes.
Right. Maybe just a final thought to leave you with, looking beyond the immediate facts. Given that description, 1 in a billion event, it really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What kind of long-term systemic changes might an incident of this magnitude actually force upon global aviation safety protocols, even before we get the final report? This kind of forces the industry to confront whether something they thought was virtually impossible might now be possible. And if so, what does that mean for keeping air travel safe in the future?